Hello, Roka. How are you doing? Today I'm starting with just killer games, and I don't think I'll be playing any survivor games. So killer day, I guess. Sounds like your sleep schedule is kind of like not little but very much messed up. Yeah, I'm doing fine. I'm doing better than last time. Thank you. Yeah. Uh, During those times when people usually are deep in sleep, you are awake, so yeah, it's pretty messed up for you. Yeah, I guess if you get into streaming and everything, usually it kind of does that to you somehow, but yeah. Like this map is a complete mess with lockers. To find one locker, I have to travel like half the map most of the times. Oh, okay. And then I guess streaming is not on the blaming side for you. That's good, I guess. Because usually when you start streaming, it does mess up people's sleep schedule a lot. That's why I said that. The match is already over, to be honest. If I try to find what is her name, Yui Yunjin. But then again, I don't have hatchets, and it will be a hassle to find hatchets and catch up to them again. So at the end, it's pretty much same, I guess. Like they are being slugged like almost three. I had 3 slugs already, I think, and still they are able to finish the gens like that fast, and they are already on 2 gens. Wow, all of them have DS, I guess. Like they have DS and boons and everything. And they even finished it. I think today my shots are a little better than how it was like last time I played Huntress. I think I'm feeling better on that. Yeah, that day I don't know what happened. My hands were a little shaky. I was not able to like make the hit quite precisely because my hands were feeling shaky somehow. So yeah, and that's not the case for today. So I guess that's why it got a little better. But yeah, some days, some of the days it's like that. So yeah. That day I think I was a little busy with some other stuff, so I wasn't able to. How can I say this? Have proper food. I think I was very. I was feeling very weak, kind of. Yeah, that would make sense. Since I didn't get time to eat food, so I was feeling kind of weak, and maybe that's why I was feeling a little shaky that day. Yeah, because I work the same hours every day, and when I don't get proper time to eat my food sometimes. Then yeah, that happens. I guess it's pretty much normal, but that day it was a bit more than usual, I guess. So yeah. I don't know. I was thinking the same because, yeah, I think it is the same team because they even had the shack offering, and yeah, could be it. I guess server is out of survivors. Yeah, they are a four-man team. That's for sure. Ah, yep, DS. I need to remember that. I think it was on David and I think Yoichi or Yunjin. I don't remember clearly. Yeah, then Yoichi. The yellow one is Yoichi. He has DS. I think I'm gonna slug him out for a little while until the DS turns out. I don't like at this point. I think I have remembered lots of names of survivors, but still I forget so many of them most of the time. So I guess it makes sense. And he had DS too. I kind of expected, but still. Like every one of them is in this corner now. Yeah, if you are playing as a four-man team, most of the times it's normal that they are sweaty, I guess. I thought I heard someone, but maybe not. Yeah, and they this time I think they finished Jane's even faster than last time. So yeah. Like I just I took some chase and like Janes were done like instantly. Yeah, but DS doesn't work on endgame anymore, so that's fine. She messed up. Like they are going so far from the hook to heal so that they don't get slugged or snowballed. Like, like they really want her out, I guess. I didn't expect did hard on her, I guess. Hello, Dix. How are you? I wonder if the if you, the this Dix beat, by the way, 7 user might be a bot, because I always get messages from bots like that, then they never reply. Let's see. Okay, I didn't even notice, or I didn't even check their perks last time, I think. And they have Deja Vu. Wow, they are really for doing the gens. They were using Deja Vu to speed up the gens. And they have 3DS. And like this Claudette has Overzealous that gives you extra gen speed after you blaze or break the totem, I think. Yeah, cleanse the totem. And they have like distortion and everything, like shadow step. I didn't even notice shadow step. Maybe if it was like maps like RPD or something like that, maybe that would have been a big trouble, but luckily I didn't get that. I, I think they love to do gens a lot, I guess. Anyways, yeah, they had all the perks for second chances, and the only perk they were missing was, I think, Deliverance and Unbreakable. Maybe I don't remember saying it. And they don't didn't have exponential. Other than that, they had pretty much most of the perks people use in a team, a four-man team, or to finish the gens as fast as possible. Like they had not one, they were playing in a team, and two of them had deja vu. I don't know what to say about that. Like one makes sense. I've never seen anyone use any team using more than one deja vu in a team. So yeah, pretty much gen oriented, I guess. I don't know. Generally, I have seen other streamers who play Survivor more, and they love to kind of speed rush gens sometimes, but sometimes like, and when you see their build, you kind of get the idea that they were literally to finish the gens, but that's a different thing. On this side, the last team, they were just they had perks to hide also, and to do generous. So they were not just for doing the gens, they were trying to hide the whole time as much as possible, I guess, with the shadow step and everything, and also do generous at the same time. So either hide or generous. I don't know why both of them, and also DS and everything, of course. Yeah, I think the dig some user last time was a bot again. Yeah, you could be doing that, but then yeah, I don't think most of the perks they used would be allowed in comp anyways. Yep. Luckily, we got another team. Unlike last time, we got same team twice. Like I don't even remember seeing Boon as a perk in comp, so I doubt that. And I don't watch it all the time, but I have watched a few of the matches, and I don't think I have ever seen Boon. Yeah, I have never seen DS. Maybe once, like a long time ago, I guess. I don't remember when, but I did. I did see one of the some of the players using DS, but recently I have never seen it. So yeah, doesn't make sense. Yeah, most of the times I am aware of that, but I do miss sometimes because yeah, I cannot track them all the time. So I'm not that good, but most of the times I do track good. Thanks for the follow, Arm. I don't know how to say that name, but thanks for the follow. Like, why did he disappear? Someone was here, but now I don't see them. So you are here. I think this was the survivor earlier who was hiding. Hello, I remember the game. We played twice. Are we in a full man team? So you were playing as a full team, right? Because I made same survivors twice. I wonder, are you the David or my assumptions are that you are David, but still, are you the David from that game? Like they are hiding super. I don't know how to counter that. They're hiding a lot. Like they will do Jen or they will unhook someone and then hide instantly. There is nothing extra going on there, I think, I guess. But yeah. Maybe Claudette was like, he might not hit me. I guess she just waited for the hatchet. Yeah, it would have been just 1K, I think, at max, but they were greedy and made it 3K. By the way, did you try the PTV, or just you are going to play it whenever it's on live server? I think for me, yeah, I have never tried PTV so far. Maybe at some point in future I will give it a try whenever it happens. But so far I have never tried PTV. Oh, okay. But yeah, for me, I never ever tried so far. Maybe in at some point in future I would give it a try. But so far I have never even tried once. Every time I get a Thalita with this cosmetic, they're either running what is sabotage or background player or some kind of some those kind of perks all the time. So like not completely toxic, but some kind of, I guess. Most of the times, every time I get these cosmetics. So let's see. Yeah, like people are pretty much divided, I guess, for the new survivor. Like lots of them love it, but the other half, I guess, more than half, don't even care about the new survivor. So it's pretty normal, I guess. But yeah, about people are very excited about the changes on the killer side. So I think it will be very challenging to play against the changes when they go to live server. Wow, I got the same map again. So someone has a sprint burst. I guess that is Claudette. And they run directly to the main building, I guess. I missed it. Like they are very good at hiding, I guess. And they are generousing and hiding. The same thing again. Like they are doing gens. I guess they are gonna be like that. Yeah, I saw that, but they are quite close to gate, I think. Oh, actually not. I wonder which gate they opened. Maybe this one? I tried to hit the Thalita from the window, but it didn't work. I guess. Like I don't get sweaty survivors at this time of the day, but I don't know, what's going on. Why there are so many sweaty survivors at this time of the day. Usually I get those at night only. And usually, if on my server, I think mainly on Asian servers, lots of the players are very sweaty. So yeah, yeah, yeah. Normally, I like to don't like to sweat that much, but they make me do it. I don't know what to say. I don't like to sweat. I just like to, even if I don't get, even if I get like zero kills, if I'm able to hit some good hatches, I feel happy about it. But they don't even let me do that. They just do gens, and they are like, so yeah, it's like that here on our server, I guess. Yeah, that's the way to play it, to be honest. By doing hitting the hatches and not caring much about hooks and kills. If you are able to make kills, then that's good too. But hatches should be good enough. But like the survivors don't let you do that. They will just rush, and they would make you uh, they would make you change your play style, kind of, I guess. That you are no more focused on hitting hatchets, because they are playing very sweaty, and they kind of make you sweaty too. So yeah. And if you compare that to other servers, so like European servers or US servers or other country servers, I guess, other than the Asian ones, mostly they are very chill, I think. Like, of course they have such place there too, but not everywhere, not all the time. So Does Mike also play as a Huntress? I don't remember asking him, but maybe he does. I don't remember quite well. Oh, actually, I think yes, he did. I think. Yeah, now I remember because when he came to my stream the first time, he did say that. I think I remember now. Yeah, I remember now. Yeah, he did say that. Um, yeah, I remember. I think we didn't talk about it much, so I kind of forgot it. But yeah, it makes sense now. Oh, I'm kind of lagging, I think. Yeah, Huntress is quite fun to play and to watch also, I guess.
Side.
I think most of us are bad as a killer. Like you rarely hit the hit. So with the either it's a huntress or other killer, we always struggle as a killer. So it's always unpredictable kind of with killers. Yeah, I think that that kind of happens to me too, but only when, like as I said earlier, if I get survivors like that and they make you change the play style you have been doing, and yeah, it's kind of frustrating when that happens. Yeah, for me, I have like 1500 something hours, and I checked a few days ago. I had checked, and I have like kind of 50-50 with killers and survivors so far. So yeah. Okay. That doesn't sound good, but okay. Well, sounds like things got out of hand for at that point, I guess, since that happened. But yeah, uh, when it does make you behave like that, it's very like mentally exhausting, I guess. So yeah, it happens. Yeah, once they learn it, there's no going back, I guess. But you can at least expect that to happen less than it used to once they don't hear it so often, I guess. I kind of expected him to go to the locker, and I was just about to check, and he just got out. Think I'm lagging a little. I don't know. I'm not sure, but I feel like it. Okay, that doesn't sound good. Okay. Yeah, today I'm getting lots of good hits, so yeah. Yeah, I like to nod once in a while, I guess. Wow, they had head on. That's why he was getting in the locker earlier. And quick and quiet too. It's not bugged, but it has like I need to um, kick Gen 15 times, I think, and I don't usually kick much, so yeah, it's kind of stuck there. I might change it. Yeah, in a single trial. Yeah, I need to do that in a single trial. That's why it's pending like that for a long time. Yeah, I heard that, but still, I think still that's fine. Or I would change the challenge after this match maybe because that has been stuck for a while, and I'm not making any progress anyways. Wow, three of them are on the same spot. Wow, they almost finished the chain. And I don't have hatchets. CUs are unbreakable. That's pretty unfortunate. I think I'll just let them go at this point. Yeah, she tried her best, I guess. I think I have yet to see Mike play as a huntress. I would love to say. I think I haven't seen it yet. Uh, but then again, um, I checked. Maybe he doesn't save the bots, so because once I think I remember looking at the channel. Yeah, because I remember I checked his channel once and I didn't see much videos there, and I assumed he doesn't save it. So, oh, okay. Did I lose the stream or something like that? Oh, okay, it's back. Like, I was not looking for him, but I guess... Yeah, he was just hiding. I think he's not... He's maybe new or something like that. I don't like to keep on hooking someone who is just been into the game or trying to learn the game. It feels very bad. I know that. Yeah, I don't like to hook survivors usually much who are new to game or look pretty much lost most of the times. Like so many times I have like killed other three survivors and just slug the fourth one who is not that good, and I would just let them go. Yes, he has repressed lines. And we are already on last gen here, so I'm wondering that they are doing this gen again rather than unhooking. Yeah, repressed lines doesn't get used that much. Like it's very rare. Like he loves to run. This Nicholas loves to run a lot. Okay, I messed up something. I was not trying to hook the other ace, I think. I said I wouldn't hook, but I did. I thought there were two aces in the game. I got that got pretty much messed up. Yeah, sometimes you just go with it, I guess. Yeah, the thing about Trapper is if you are good at it, or if you at least know the good spots for the traps, then it's pretty much 4K most of the times, or at least 3K. Because like even good survivors will miss lots of traps. So yeah, it's tough if you know your traps well. Yeah, the good thing about playing as a trapper is even if you're not good at it, if you are well aware of the good spots for trapper to place your traps, you can do pretty well. So yeah, it helps, I think, and especially with the recent buff on trapper where you get a speed boost after you set a trap, it gets even better, I think. Yeah, once I remember playing against Trapper in the Goldwind map recently, and I was taking a chase, and like well, I don't know what kind of names people usually use for loops, so I won't be able to say what kind of loop it was, but still, he kind of set a trap on a window, and right as soon as I saw him placing the trap on the window, I went for the window on the opposite side of that loop. And before, even before I could get to that loop, he caught up to me and he was able to hit me. So yeah, that is pretty fast, I think. Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah, it's quite fun to play as a trapper. When I started playing killer, I did play as him for quite some time, but then after, of course, I switched to huntress. Then I didn't play much as other killers, but still, yeah, it's fun. Yeah, I even have a funny clip with Naughty Bear, because right when I was playing, um, the cosmetic, there was some kind of cosmetic glitch, I think, due to which the height of the trapper was changed visually, but the cosmetic wasn't there. And it looked funny because it was the normal trapper without the skin, but his legs were squeezed in, and it was quite funny. So yeah, but yeah, I do love that skin. I don't play as a trapper much, but I would have loved to buy that if I was more into playing as him, maybe. Yeah, I have a clip of that. Unfortunately, I didn't keep the whole video. I have like 10 or 15 seconds. I guess 10 seconds, something like that. I posted it on TikTok, so like 10 seconds or something like that. And the main funny thing on that video is that with that squeezed in height, he vaults the window in the shack, and it looks even more funnier. So yeah, it's a funny one. If you wanna see, I can find a link, I think. Here you go. I think. Oh no, sorry. Forgive me. I think I made a mistake. I took the link of a latest video. Let me get the related one. So this is the one. Just give me a minute here. I'll play again. Just I need to order some food before that. Yeah, and not he looked away funny even in the chase, and the moment he vaulted that shack window, I kind of lost it. I couldn't even play the game. I think I died at the end in that match because I was laughing the whole time, and I couldn't even take a proper chase, and I just died. I think like way before the game was done. I was just busy laughing, I guess. Yeah, it was pretty funny. Oh, thank you so much. I didn't post much, so I don't have that many views or follows. But thank you so much. Yeah, I was not posting much there often, but still, I sometimes post a few of the videos. I think, but the smaller ones, as people don't usually watch longer videos on TikTok, I guess. So I post the longer one on YouTube and kind of a part of it on TikTok sometimes. Yes, I do. And the fun. Remember last time I said I might try, but the thing recently, like I think today, I was checking Steam, and I wasn't even aware that I had already bought that game, but I have never played it yet. But yeah, please go on. What were you about to say? Okay, maybe it won't allow you to paste a link. Let me look on that. Just a minute. Can you try that again? Okay. I don't know if there's. I don't remember adding any others, but no, it didn't show. It just showing kind of like spam protected text like this asterisk only. Yeah, I see one of that on Nightbot. I disabled it, but I don't know. Yeah, I got it. I got it on the Whisper. Uh, okay. The thing is, I think I'll have to watch it later because I'm not sure if you're aware, but TikTok doesn't work in my country right now. It's kind of banned. So I will have to use VPN to watch it, but I'll let you know. Currently banned it, so yeah. I'll let you know. I'm watching it right now. Seems like you are having like too much fun in that video. Like I could hear the cough and everything after because of the too much screaming and laugh, I guess. Does that game have like some kind of uh, voice? I don't know what you call voice morphing, something like that, based on the environment surrounding you are on. Because the sounds were a little different there in that game, in that I mean in that clip. Yeah, I could see that. I could see that. I could hear that. It was it felt like you were being traumatized. To be honest, it's kind of sounded like that. Yeah, it kind of sounded like it. Like the sounds were a little different. Yeah, kind of like closer to the real life sounds, I guess. If you are in such buildings, so yeah. Okay. I don't even know what are in the game, so that makes me want to try it. But I guess playing alone might not be fun, but I will try. I think I will give it a try. What it feels like. Can you play alone or not? Like, or is it only more than one people to play with? Oh, okay, got it. Yeah. I guess it would be fun with friends. Wow. I wonder what happened. I think she's lagging a lot. She even has a red bar. So I think, yeah. 388. See, dodge is quite good. Wow, she had DS. Yeah, I think, but they are gonna rework on that work, so I think I don't know if they are gonna make it more bad or what, but yeah, hopefully good, I think. Yeah, the DS is on the list of rework. Not now, I think, but very soon. Very soon. Yep. Yeah, I think they are gonna fix it. I'm thinking the same, but I don't know. I don't think they can make it any worse than 3 seconds or something like that right now, right? It can't be bad than that. Yeah, it's 3 seconds. I don't think they can make it any worse than that. Yeah, I think hopefully that's what's gonna happen. Yeah, probably because lots of the survivors have already moved on from DS, I think. So unless it's very good, it might be not that easy for most of them to get back on DS. Hello, Riz. How are you doing? How are you doing? Yeah, no, long time no see. I don't remember last when we played together last time, I think. Yeah, I'm doing fine. It's going fine, I guess. So far, it has been going good. How about you? Okay. Have you been playing Survivor games or not recently? I don't remember seeing you online recently, I think. Yeah, I did see you a few days ago, I think, playing some other games, but I don't remember which one, but yeah. Yeah, time zone is the biggest troubling factor here, I guess. Yeah, I do stream almost daily these days, unless something comes up, but yeah, it has been going fine, I think. I'm not streaming running. I'm not streaming for longer duration, but yeah, yeah. So I've been doing like quite normal streams, but it's going fine so far. So yeah, it can be like a lot of streams if I do it daily, I guess. So how is it going with the games? Did you play today or not? Wow, it's I kicked this gen once and they never touched it back. And mostly mostly I don't get much. I don't use mic much, so it's pretty um, tough to keep people on the stream. So yeah. Yeah. Lately, I have been using a little more mic, I think, but yep, it's going good. I didn't even notice that was a single gen. I hate that bubble when the gens are done. It blocks pretty much everything. Yeah, I think the same, but that's why I try to hit her. That's why I try to hit her as soon as possible. Like this Jeff didn't even take a single chase the whole match, and he's acting cocky at the end of the match. Like, I don't know what goes on their mind. Like until now, I didn't even know that there was a Jeff in a match, in this match. Yeah, he had distortion, but like I didn't even see him in front of me even once throughout the whole match, I think. They don't, so they're like, they don't even take chase the whole match. They are hiding the whole match, and at the end, they're like, they did something extraordinary, I guess. Maybe. But usually I do find players who use distortion, but as that map was a bit kind of big, and it was very easy to hide the whole match, so it was pretty easy to hide in that match, in that map. Welcome back, Rez. Oh, okay. I don't remember when was the last time I got Nemesis, because I have not been able to play much Survivor games recently. Yeah, both of them, and at at some level, I think Dead Dog Salon is also kind of sneaky one where survivors can hide pretty easily. Now this one is gonna be tough, but I would get lots of darkness value, I think. That didn't go well for him, I guess. Like in other maps, I don't, but in Dead Dog Salon, I also try to hide sometimes, and it kind of works. Like in Nicholas has a plot twist here. Like I think I'm gonna keep on running for the whole match. I can't even catch up to her. Why? I'm not sure. Yeah, if you have like right cosmetics on that map, it's pretty hard to spot anyone. Yeah, yeah, that kind of looked like she was way too fast than normal, but like in lots of map, if you have the right cosmetics, you can hide pretty well most of the times. I don't think I want to chase her, to be honest. She's gonna keep on going round and round the whole match, and I don't think I can catch up to her most of the times. Like, she's way too fast. I don't know how. Like, I can't even catch up to her unless they have some kind of boon that I cannot hear. It's shadows. No, not Saddest Step. It's I don't remember too. I think it's called Dark Theory. Yeah, I think that's the one. Unless they have it, I don't. That's very sus. Cause she was very fast. Yep, they don't have it, and she was way too fast. How? And like these are the cheaters most of the times. Like players without any prestige are highly in the cheaters category. Very much. Like recently I have been getting lots of cheaters, not every day, but like lots of them, and like I think all of them were zero prestige, so this one looks very suspicious. Yeah. Yeah, well, I didn't used to get cheaters before, but recently I have been getting like a lot. In recently, like I think few weeks back, I got two cheaters in a single match, and both of them were doing speed hacking. So like I couldn't catch up to them. They were running like more than double speed of background player the whole time, and somehow I one of them was Dwight and one was Feng, and somehow when I was able to down the Dwight, then he was like crawling faster than like almost as the speed of maybe not as fast as background player, but almost there. So that was the most cheaters I got in a single game, I think, so far. But yeah. I think this Fang is good. Like they are pre-doping palace now. Okay. Might be DS or maybe not. Wow, they have Soul Guard, I think. Like most of the players are running the whole map all the time. I don't know why. And she looks fast again. Like they have hope or something, I don't know, but they are so fast. I missed lots of hatches there. I don't know what went on there. She did have hope because she was way too fast. Okay, they had buckle up. I thought it was soul guard, but buckle up. I think this will be the last match for today. So yeah. Welcome back, but I'll be just playing this last one match. I think after this, I'll be done for today. Oh, okay. Hopefully everything's good. This last match, I got 0 kills and like they had buckle up and but I don't think I got to see lots of buckle up, but still, they I couldn't quite catch up to them. I missed lots of hatches on that match. Like recently, no one is even taking chase. They are just running from like W gaming the whole match as soon as they see me. I said last match and I got this map. I don't know what to make out of this. I wonder if I can hit him from here. Yeah, that was a nice one. Yeah, it's pretty much same for me too. Like as soon as I said, okay, this will be the last match, and I get RPD. He went on that same gen again. Yeah, some of the like this corner and that corner is very fun to hit, but not all the time. I guess he wanted to get hanged right away. Wow, the Claudia didn't like it. Oh, okay, yeah. I used to use Bitter Murmur before, but since the Darkness Revealed, the Locker perk got introduced, I don't think I have been using that much. But I do use Glowing Concoction every now and then. Not all the time, but I do. Like, see, he's already looking for spots. I think this is Claudette or not. He is lagging a lot. Like this gen is almost done already. I heard I don't even remember her name, but I think I heard her, but maybe not. Not the Claudette, the other one. The yeah, Lisa, I think. Yeah, Lisa. That's her name. I heard her getting down from somewhere, I think, but I don't know from where. I think this is his last hook, maybe. Yep. Like, what do you do with these bots? Like sometimes they will dodge lots of hatches like so accurately, and sometimes they are so dumb. Yeah, I think they have been reworking on bots on every update they are making, I think, so far. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, that's kind of like I understand, to be honest, about the wall hacks, but I think it's quite required for the bots. Because normally as bots cannot, of course they are bots anyways, but I think wall hacks are pretty much required for bots to play well. But still, by the way, do you know when you try to hit the bot with the hatchet, uh, even when they are downed, they will dodge it. Have you known that? Like even if they are downed and you try to hit them, then they will dodge the hatchet. Like when I was trying to practice some games on custom games with bots, I tried that and they dodge a lot even when they are downed. I don't think she makes it. Yeah, they will dodge like no matter how many times you hit the hatchet on them when they are down, they will dodge it every time. And not even like, you know, lazy dodge or something like that. They will like accurately dodge it like you are chasing them. At least it's a 4, like I think 4K, we can call it 4K. She's gonna die anyways unless I let her go. So it was a good match at the end, I guess. My, I feel like either she's on this side of the map or here inside this section of the map, most likely. I see her. Anyways, that was the last one for today. So I'll be back tomorrow again. I think I would be able to play some survivor match also tomorrow. Of course, it won't be that good, but I will try. Yeah, lots of survivors do that, and most of the times. But if they are, if I can see them and they are not trying to run away, then there's a very high chance that I will let them go anyways. But if they are going to be like hiding the whole time and trying their, trying being a try hard, I guess somehow, for opening the gates, then at those times I don't let them go. But most of the times, I do just let them go when that happen when I close the hatch. So, anyways, yeah, thank you. You too. Have a good day. I don't know how many of you are here. It shows few of us are here, but I don't know since no one is on chat. But I'm gonna just I don't rate much, but I have been trying to do whenever I have some viewers. So doesn't matter much if you are not gonna stay. But I'm just gonna do the rate if you are interested. Thank you for being here, and bye bye. Unless, do you have anyone whom I can raid, Roka? Unless if you have any one of your friends or someone who you know is live right now. Or if anyone can suggest anyone. Okay, no problem. I'll just raid the one of the streamer that I watch usually. So, bye bye. Have a good day or good night, whatever uh, it is on your side. Okay, bye bye.